at Harvard, talking about socialism and capitalism, the marriage of them two together, which would be called social capitalism. I never heard anything so insane in my life. And this guy teaches at Harvard. He's better off teaching tiddlywinks.
Bob, continue.
Well, we're going to have lots of inflation. We're going to have lots of unemployment. And I think that wages are not going to increase. They've been increasing at about 3% a year. So inflation's 13.58%. Then we're losing 10%. The average wage earner is. And so, 10 years of that, you don't have anything in buying power. Another thing that people seem to miss here is that our economy has been slowing down into recession for the last 1 3/4 years, almost 2 years in February. Now, during that process, we've been having people get laid off. And so we've got three figures from unemployment. The 6.1 they tell you about, the U6, which is 10 7/8, and the long-term unemployment, and these are government figures, which is 14 7/8%. Now, that is going to at least double over the next 3 years.
But again, we have all the parrots on radio.
I got to get to my punchline here. Hold on.
Go ahead.
Now, 70% of the GDP right now comes from consumerism. And I see some figures have been as high as 72%. We'll call it 70. The average long-term mean since the Second World War that the consumer contributed to GDP is 64.5%. If we just go back to 64.5%, the mean in unemployment will be 35%.
Now, I want you to slowly go back over that again, because that is so huge. Everywhere I hear it parroted, unemployment's only 6.1%, but they cook that number because after you go off the unemployment rolls after 6 months and are not reemployed, they take you out of the roll. But when you look at the real number, which they don't publicize, the long-term unemployment, you're talking about a staggering double-digit figure. And, my God, that is depression level to have. Go over those numbers again.
The short term is 6.1. The intermediate term, including the people that just left unemployment lines or unemployment payments, is 10 7/8%. The long term, people going back to 1990, is 14.7%, or 14 7/8%, which is 14.875. And the government doesn't want you to hear about it. Just like you said, Alex, they don't publicize it, but they do publish it.
Now, but
and then, they never talk about the birth-death ratio. This is a little trick that they've got that they use, and they hypothetically, out of thin air, pull figures out as to how many people entered the workforce and how many people got jobs that they think they got, but they don't know. It's absolute insanity.
Well, that was my next question. Go over some of the tricks they use to cook the books, because
that's the main one. The birth-death ratio, as it's called. And in the CPI, they have another thing called hedonics. That's a real fancy name for hedonists, I guess. And that figure, what it amounts to is this. Somebody goes to the store, and they want to buy a pound of steak, and it costs $5. And they say, I'm not going to pay $5. I'm going to go over there and get that chopped meat for $3. So they're saying that when prices rise, people will go to lesser cuts of meat and get them cheaper, thereby reducing inflation. Now, if you can back into that thinking and philosophy, you ought to be in an insane asylum, I'll tell you.
Yeah, they're saying, inflation.
They get away with.
They're saying inflation isn't bad because if you can't afford a Cadillac or you can't afford a Ford, you can have an old Gremlin or Pinto, and so now the amount of money you have, basically has been indexed off into something else. It's just total crap. Let's take some phone calls, and I want to get, because you have a lot of expertise in this. After we take a gamut of calls here, Bob Chapman, into banning the short trades for 10 days, which is going to end at the end of the week. and 700 and something financial institutions. It's only banned on them. And the way I see this is they have turned loose the financial institutions that are the architects of this doom that we're facing. They've now turned them loose on what's left of the real economy, and they're now crawling all over what's left of the Fortune 500 that does manufacturing, just blowing the daylights out of it and sabotaging it and gang raping it and climbing all over it and trying to short and drive down. I mean, all sorts of things going on. So I want to talk about that with you, Bob Chapman, because this appears just to be not just a power grab, but just an all-out military assault on anything not part of the criminal banking order. Let's go ahead and talk to Ricardo in New Jersey. Ricardo, thanks for holding. You're on the air with Bob Chapman.
Alex, how are you?
Good, sir.
Thank you for taking my call. I want to talk to you about a police brutality that happened in Red Bank, New Jersey.
Okay.
Last Wednesday, September 10th, my wife she had like a small lipo in her arms and thigh. So it was like early in the morning. So I picked it up like 1 o'clock. She looked fine, she looked perfect. So she went to get my son. It was around 2:30, 3 o'clock. Unfortunately, she got involved in a little fender bender.
Okay, what happened to your wife?
So the cop took him out of the car, and they told him, "Listen, you drunk?" And my wife said, "No, I can't be drunk. I don't drink." Yeah, you smell like alcohol. So they did the test. They make you blow that thing, and everything comes zero. So all of a sudden, this guy comes over, grabs it through her arms, and say, "I just had a surgery. Please, it hurts." And the guy put it right against her car. She started bleeding really bad.
Well, that's what that's what happens to the Iraqis. This is how we're all... So they slammed her head in the car. What happened next?
And they were holding through her arms. And then another cop came over. They took my son out of her side. My son was crying. They put him in the car by himself. And the officer yelled at my son, "You stay in the car." It's still today that my son gets up like 4 o'clock in the morning having nightmare. So
I know they're hiring men whose minds are completely gone from Iraq. I'm going to hold you over if need be, but Bob, they're now announcing Army brigades to patrol America. As you know, we covered it last week. They are now. Police brutality is just exploding everywhere. The police have been told basically have your way with the public. Is the government looking for a war, Bob?
They're looking for civil insurrection so they can put it down before too many people are mad enough to stop them. And if they nip it in the bud now and do not allow the total breakdown financially and economically within society, because that will make everybody mad at government and other things, and they won't have anything. They won't have anything to lose except their lives, and they'll figure maybe I'll lose them anyway, and they'll fight back. So they want to get them before that.
Well, there's all these videos where the women do nothing, the men, they're tasered, they're beaten, they're attacked, and it's really destroying the police name out there. God help us. So what ended up happening to your wife? Did they take her to jail after they beat her up? Ricardo?
Yeah, all of a sudden, one of the cops, they told her, "Get in the car, you F bitch." So they had it in the car and they take it to the hospital to do some urine tests. So the officer told my wife, "You better shut up because I'm going to call DIFAS on you." So they would threaten her. They took her to the hospital.
Call who on you? Did they threaten to CPS your children?
And the officer told my wife that they were going to send DIFAS to my house.
Stay there. We're going to skip the break. We're going to be talking behind the scenes. Okay, Ricardo, continue. Send who? I don't understand you. Send who to your house?
No, the officer told my wife, he was really nasty and told my wife, "You know what? You shut up because I'm going to send DIFAS to your house."
What's DIFAS?
DIFAS is when you mistreat your son.
No, I knew it. That's how they beat you up, then they steal your children. God help you. So what? He was mad that she hadn't been drinking, so he decided to beat her up, and then how did this end?
But my wife didn't drink. She had a surgery and they give her some local stuff.
No. I mean, I understand. So no, there's big articles where people go to the dentist and they CPS their kids. So
yeah.
So tell me.
They took her to the hospital, because they want to do some kind of test. So all of a sudden, this guy tells, my wife is a small thing, Alex. She's 5'2", 120 pounds. That guy was 6'4", 6'5", at least 300 pounds.
I know.
Two guys. So my wife was desperate, trying to find out where's my son. I'm dry, I need water. So the guy told my wife, sit right there. My wife said, I cannot see. It hurts. And you already destroyed me. So all of a sudden she gets up and the guy jumps on top of her, and that's it. They broke all the stitches in her leg. She started bleeding unstoppable. And those son of my gun, they would tell me, yeah, your wife is in headquarters.